Hi, this is Rod Saunders from Jew and Greek, and this is Musical Monday. In my last Musical Monday, I talked about my experience in playing weddings, and I thought today I would talk about my non-wedding playing gigs. I started playing music back in the 70s, actually. A couple of friends of mine and I put together a little, what we considered contemporary Christian group. And we did some original stuff. We did some banjo-based or bluegrass-based tunes. Usually we would just do like hymns, bluegrass style. And then we also did cover tunes of groups like Love Song, Chuck Girard and Love Song. Welcome Back was one of our favorites. If you'd never heard Welcome Back, it was one of the more popular tunes that Love Song did. And we got the opportunity to play for the Cornerstone Coffee House in Fort Worth, Texas, which was a popular hangout for Christian hippies back in the 70s. They would sit on the floor, and it was a coffee house. There was no alcohol. It was a Christian joint. And they would bring their Bibles, and a man named Orlando Reyes would get up and speak. He ran that coffee house ministry. And we were invited to go there and sing and play a little bit. And the people there really liked what we were doing. We got other opportunities to travel around North Texas and sing and play and minister in other places, churches, youth groups, stuff like that. It wasn't that lucrative, but it was fun to do. And probably the Cornerstone gig was the main event that we ever did. It was so well received, and there were more people there than there were at most of our gigs. And so that kind of whetted my appetite for performing. But then I ended up going to Bible school, and I kind of put that aside for a while. And while I was at Rhema, I met Vep Ellis Jr., who was the music director. I didn't perform with the Rhema band because they did a lot of Southern gospel stuff, and that wasn't really my style. But I did sing in the choir. And Vep Ellis Jr. auditioned everybody who wanted to sing in the choir. And in the auditioning process, he found out that I was a guitar instructor at a music store here in Tulsa. So later on in the year, I was going into choir rehearsal one day, and he stopped me and said, I want to talk to you after rehearsal. And now you have to understand, I was in my 20s. I'm about 26 years old at this point. So I was only out of high school for about 8 years. And when he said he wanted to talk to me, I thought I was in trouble. You know, I had flashbacks to my high school days because I got in trouble some in high school. So I thought, what did I do? I'm in trouble. I didn't know what he wanted to talk to me about. Anyway, after the class or after the rehearsal, I said, you wanted to talk to me? He says, yeah, I need a guitar instructor. My instructor quit. Would you be interested in being the guitar instructor at Rhema? And I thought for about a half a second, and I said, yeah. And he says, okay, just go see my secretary, and I'll have all the paperwork ready for you to fill out. And so I became the guitar instructor at Rhema while I was still a student. It was a really bizarre arrangement because I was going to classes, but I could park in the faculty parking spot. I think I was the only one that ever did that. I don't know. Anyway, taught there for 2 semesters, and then they discontinued the private music instruction program. So that was the end of my Rhema career. But anyway, that was the highlight of my time at Rhema as far as the music is concerned. As I got to meet the people in the music department and teach a lot of fellow students that were getting ready for ministry. So once they discontinued that private music instruction, you have to understand this was 1985, and there was a oil glut back then, and oil was the main thing that Tulsa's economy was built on. And so with an oil glut and the oil prices down, a lot of businesses were laying off. And the economy in Tulsa was really bad in 1985. And so the first thing that people cut back on when they lose their job or they take a hit in their income is music lessons for the kids. So not only did I not have students at Rhema anymore, the music store where I was teaching, lesson attendance was down there too. So I thought, well, this is no good. I've got to make a living somehow. And I was waiting tables to pay the bills because music wasn't doing it. So I said, I think I'm going to move to Nashville. I wanted to get into the contemporary Christian music business, and the economy in Tulsa was bad. Nothing's happening here. So I took off for Nashville. And I got a job there working at a steak and ale like I was working at in Tulsa. And then they found out I was a musician. And so they said, well, we want live music for the lounge area of the steak and ale lounge. So they said, you want to be our lounge entertainer? I said, sure. So I started performing in the lounge because people wait in the lounge until their table is ready. It's not like they go there just to drink, although some people do. But most of the people that are in the lounge, they're just waiting around for 20, 30 minutes until their table is ready when it's a busy night. And so I started performing there at the Steak and Ale Lounge. And back then, I would swap off from keyboard to guitar. On the keyboard, I would do my Billy Joel, Elton John stuff. And then I would swap off to the guitar, and I would do my guitar-based tunes. And it was a little variety that people seemed to appreciate because most of the performers just play the guitar. Anyway, so I started I did that, I guess, for almost a year. And one night, this guy comes up, and he was just one of those people who was hanging out in the lounge just to drink. And he was drunk. And he's got his drink, and he walks up to my keyboard, and he's like, "You're good, man. I really dig your music." And he spilled his drink. And fortunately, it didn't spill on the keyboard. Now, if you spill a drink on my guitar, that's no big deal. I can just clean it up real quick. But you spill a drink on a keyboard, electronic keyboard, and it can short it out and ruin the keyboard real quick. And his wife or his girlfriend or whoever was there with him, she saw what was happening. She said, "Honey, sit down. You're going to spill your drink on his keyboard and ruin it." And I'm like, "Thank you," because I didn't want to have to tell him, step away from my keyboard, please. You don't want to be, confrontational with your guests that you're performing for. But, yeah, I was concerned about that. And she saw it, and so she got him to sit down and behave. But I thought, man, I came so close to having an episode, where a $500 keyboard is ruined because of this drunk patron in the restaurant. I didn't play bars. I didn't play places like nightclubs and bars, but I did play places where they served alcohol. And anywhere there's alcohol, you're going to have the occasional idiot that gets drunk and misbehaves. And while I was living in Nashville, I put my name and phone number up on the bulletin board at the local Christian coffee house. I don't remember the name of the place, but this is the place where Michael W. Smith got his start. Amy Grant used to perform there. It was the hangout for contemporary Christian artists in Nashville back in the 70s and 80s. And I was there from 85 to 88. Anyway, so I put my name and phone number and the instruments that I play up on the bulletin board. And I got a call one day from Paul Overstreet. Now, I didn't know who Paul Overstreet was at the time, but eventually found out he was a famous songwriter. He wrote the song, a couple of songs for Randy Travis, On the Other Hand, and I Come From a Long Line of Love, Digging Up Bones. He had some big hits back in the 80s. And he was wanting to put together his own band, and he wanted to talk to me about playing in his band. It never worked out while I was in Nashville, but he eventually put together a band and started touring. He didn't have a great voice, so he never was successful as a recording artist. But boy, was he great as a songwriter. Anyway, I also got a call from Bruce Carroll. And Bruce said, I just recorded an album and I'm trying to put a band together so I can go around and start touring. And he said, I need a keyboard guy. You said you played keyboard, so I'd like to meet with you. And I said, sure. So he came by my apartment dressed in overalls, painting overalls, and just long hair and a beard. And I had no idea. I thought, who's this hippie guy in painting overalls? Gave me a cassette of his songs, and he said, well, listen to the songs on the cassette and see if you think that you can do those songs, and then get back with me. And I said, okay. So after he left, I put the cassette in, I'm listening, and the song, I think it was the first song on the tape. I had heard it on the radio. This guy was getting airplay. I just thought he was this flaky guy, because you meet people like that all the time in the music business, people that think they're going to be a star. But this was a song I'd heard several times on the radio. It was on the charts in the Nashville market. And so I thought to myself, wow, this guy's for real. And the music was pretty well produced. So I thought, wow, this could be a great opportunity. So I called him back. I said, yeah, I can do these songs. They weren't real difficult, and I could, mimic what the keyboard guy on the recording was doing close enough. So we got together and rehearsed, and it went well. So I went and did a gig with him, and we played the Russellville, Kentucky Tobacco Festival together. And it was fun. Everybody had a good time. Didn't make much money, but I knew he was just getting started. And it just turns out he didn't have any money. He said, I just can't afford to pay musicians right now. I'm just going to have to sing with tracks, but when things pick up and when I've got some good paying gigs, I want you to be my keyboard guy. I said, great. And I waited around for months, and nothing was happening. And nothing was happening for me other than doing the steak and ale gigs. I played the Holodome across the street from the Holiday Inn. Across the street from Opryland. It was a very nice Holiday Inn, the Holodome. I did brunch there for a few months, but that wasn't why I was in Nashville. I wanted to get with an artist like Bruce Carroll. And nothing was happening there, and I didn't like Nashville, so I moved. I moved to Orlando, Florida. And then after I moved to Orlando, I'm hearing Bruce Carroll on the air. It's another chart topper from Bruce Carroll. And then this guy's career just exploded. He won Grammys and Dove Awards, and I'm thinking, man, I was so close. But I later figured out that the way the business is in Nashville, I don't think he would have used me. Once his career took off, the recording label, his management, probably would have gotten studio musicians to tour with him, so it probably wouldn't have worked out for me anyway. But anyway, I was very close. This guy was friends with Ricky Skaggs. He knew some very big name people in Nashville, so naturally I was looking forward to working with him, but it didn't work out. And I think that was all within the providence of God. I don't think God wanted me to be in the contemporary Christian music business. I think God wanted me to do what I'm doing now. I think I should have been teaching years ago instead of focusing on my music. But anyway, I prefer music, so I guess that's what I gravitated toward. One time there was a guy, now this was in a nice Italian restaurant here in Tulsa. This guy is sitting there close to the bar area, but he can hear my music, and then he eventually made his way into the area of the restaurant where I was playing, and he'd been there for about an hour and had several drinks, And then he just blurts out. Now, you have to understand, my set was a little classical. I mean, it's a nice Italian restaurant. This is not a bar or a coffee house. I played classical stuff. I played Spanish guitar tunes. I played some Beatles tunes and pop tunes. And then I did a little bossa nova. So this guy's sitting there listening to the music I'm doing. And then he blurts out, "Can you do Honky Tonk Angels?" I can't stand country music. I don't do country. I don't do Honky Tonk Angels. But again, you can't be confrontational with the guests. You have to figure out. I mean, I wanted to say, "Oh, you've been sitting there for an hour. Have you heard me do anything remotely resembling Honky Tonk Angels?" That's what I wanted to say. But the polite thing to say is, "I'm sorry, I don't know that song." You say that anytime you don't want to do the request that they're making, whether you know the song or not. You just tell them, "I'm sorry, I don't know that song." And so then they'll come back with, "Oh, it's easy. It's only got 3 chords. I tell you, you play it and I'll sing it." And then you have to say, "Well, I don't think the management would appreciate that." And you put it on them. And they'll back you up on it because they don't want some drunk getting up and ruining everybody's night. So anyway, I've had incidents like that I've had to deal with. And I am not good with drunks. I'll just be the first to admit. I have very little patience with drunks, whether I'm performing or not. And but there was this one time, same restaurant, there was a guy that had sat there. Now, he wasn't drunk, but he'd had a few drinks, and he was feeling good. And he was enjoying my music. I think I did Gordon Lightfoot's song, "If You Could Read My Mind." And this guy was a Gordon Lightfoot fan. And so he said, "Can you do the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald? If you can do all the verses to the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, I'll give you $20. Well, at one point I had it memorized, but I didn't have the lyrics all memorized at this point, but I had them all written down and on sheets in my guitar case. So when he said that, I said, "Yeah, I think I can do that." So I pulled out all the lyrics of the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, threw them in the floor, because there's a lot of verses and you can't get it all on one sheet. And the guitar part's easy. It's only got 4 chords, and the melody's just repetitive. So I did all the verses to the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And he said, "Well, I didn't say you had to do it by memory, did I?" He says, "A deal's a deal." And he gave me $20. He came back a few weeks later with some friends, and he said, "This guy's great." He said, "Do the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I want them to hear it." So I did it again, and he gave me $20 again. I made $40 off of that guy, off that one song. And it's the easiest song in the world to do, but people just respond better to songs that they know and like. I mean, I can sit there and play the prelude to the first cello suite by Bach. I can play it flawlessly and nobody will even look up, but you do the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald and you get $40. It's bizarre. That's the music business. People gravitate toward what they like. But playing all the classical and Spanish and bossa nova and pop stuff, that variety, I think, sells you as an artist so that when they make a request like that, you can get a big tip. If all I did was classical, I wouldn't get the big tips. But if all I did was pop stuff, I'd be singing in a coffee house. But it was the fact that I could do all of that that got me that gig. At Ti Amo was the name of the place, one of the nicer Italian restaurants here in Tulsa. So, and then there was a time I was at another Italian restaurant called Benali's. And I'm playing and singing, and there's this big table. I guess they were having like a family reunion or a wedding reception dinner. I don't know what it was. But anyway, there was they put several tables together. It had a group of about 20 people, I guess. And most of the people are just eating and talking. But there was this one guy that sat there, and he was watching me. And every song he was clapping. And I think he had had a few drinks. But, he'd finished eating and had a few drinks, and so he was enjoying the music. And he would clap after every song. And then after this one song, he claps and he stops and he yells at everybody at the table, "What's wrong with you guys? This guy's great. You should clap." And so they all politely clapped, but he was very close to making a scene. And I appreciated his support, but I didn't want him, making a scene like that. But that's why I don't like playing places where they serve alcohol, because you're going to have to deal with that. Even if you're not in a bar, even if it's a nice restaurant, occasionally you're going to have people who don't know when they've had enough, and they're going to make a fool of themselves. And I've had other gigs where I did interesting things, like I did a hayride one time, of all things. I've played at a Baptist Student Union at Midwestern State University in my hometown. I've done civic centers. Now, civic center, that's a nice gig if you can play for civic centers, because they've got money. They've earmarked for entertainment, that the community puts money into what they do. So, yeah, you can make good money playing for the. You don't get the gigs that often, but when you do, they pay very well. And there's no alcohol, there's no jerks. You're dealing with people that are there to hear nice entertainment. I did a gig one time in the Dallas area for a grocery store. Believe it or not, it was at Christmas time, and this was a high-end area of Dallas, South Lake. And the people who shopped at this grocery store were pretty, well off. And so they wanted some entertainment. So they brought me in there, and they sat me next to the produce department. And I set my amp up, and I played Christmas music. I played the whole night. All I did was Christmas carols on my guitar. And they loved it. They just thought that was so cool that I could sit there and play the guitar and play Christmas music for their guests at Christmas time. So after I did that gig, they said, we got a lounge area here. Would you like to start playing in the lounge? And I said, sure. And I don't think they served alcohol there, because I never had any alcohol related. They may have, I don't remember. But that was a well-paying establishment there. And one of the events that I did for them, they had a Greek night. They were going to have all of these Greek meals served, and they wanted to know if I could play Greek music. I said, sure. I didn't know any Greek music, but I knew that they paid well. If I could do it, I was going to do it. So I play mandolin. So what I did was I got some tracks for some Greek songs, and I learned them real quick. And I would just play my mandolin. It's, the Greek instrument is the balalaika, but I don't have a balalaika. I have a mandolin, and it's close enough, So, this was Texas. They don't know the difference. So I played all of these Greek tunes, and including Zorba the Greek. And if you are not familiar with Zorba the Greek, it's from the movie of the same name. And it's da 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 da, and everybody gets up and dances like line dancing, only for Greek music instead of country music. And so I actually did this gig outdoors, and when I started doing Zorba the Greek, they all got up and started dancing. And it was the most amazing thing. I've got people dancing to my mandolin music, and I'm not even that good, but I'm good enough to fake it. And that's one thing you learn in the business is you learn how to get away with as much as possible, how to fake it as much as you can and get away with it. And they loved it. People had a great time to the Greek music. Zorba the Greek. And there was a couple of other real catchy tunes that I didn't know, but I learned them for that gig. And let's see, what other strange gigs I've done. I did the Tulsa Guitar Society, I ran that for several years, and that led to a lot of opportunities around the Tulsa area, playing for everything from grocery stores to private parties, corporate functions. One corporate function, these people gave me some. If you've ever seen me wearing my T-shirt with a lion or a cougar or whatever, I got those shirts for free after playing this gig. I mean, they paid me too, but they also said, pick out any shirts you want. And they gave me 3 shirts. I kept 2 of them, gave 1 of them away. You get nice little things like that too. Birthday parties. I've done so many different gigs over the years for so many different settings, and you have to tailor your presentation to the crowd. Some crowds, all they want, if it's a corporate function, they probably don't want any singing. They probably just want you to sit there and play music while they're getting ready for their speech, their business presentation, whatever. Restaurants, you got to play it by ear. Sometimes restaurant crowds don't want any singing. They just want to sit there and talk. And sometimes the people are really into your music, and you can tell. And so you start singing. One time I played a gig, a lady from, she was a Filipino lady, and she had a catering, like a bakery shop, where she makes cakes for weddings and stuff like that. Cookies, all kinds of pastries and stuff. And she had a little storefront, but most of her stuff was catering. But at Valentine's Day, she wanted people to come into her restaurant and have their Valentine's Day dinner there. And so she hired me to be the entertainment for her little bakery shop. And it was kind of a strange gig. There was only like 30 or 40 people in there, It wasn't a big crowd, but she wanted live entertainment. And most of the people that came in there that night were Filipinos. There's a large Filipino community here. And so I got done. Again, I'm playing mostly classical music, Spanish, little pop and everything. And I got done, and all of these, I think about a dozen Filipinos were sitting around, and they were enjoying my music. And I got ready to pack up and leave. And they said, "Do you sing?" And I said, "Yeah, I sing some." They said, "Sing something." And I tell you, these Filipino people are some of the nicest, friendliest, most fun people to be around. So they said, "Sing something." So I said, "Okay, well." So I sang something, and they liked it. It was a tune that they knew, because Filipinos assimilate. I mean, they know English. They know our culture very well. It's not like, dealing with people from Central America or whatever. Filipinos know American culture. And so they liked the song that I did. And then one of them said, "Can you do Sweet Home Alabama?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I can remember the words." And they said, "Oh, I love that song." So I started do. And I started doing Sweet Home, and they're all singing along with me. They all knew all the words to Sweet Home Alabama. And I said, "This is bizarre. Here I am sitting here in a pastry shop at Valentine's Day singing Sweet Home Alabama with a bunch of Filipinos." It doesn't get much stranger than that, but it was so fun. They had a great time. And even though my time was up, I hung around another 30 minutes singing along with those people. It's gigs like that that really make you enjoy performing, because people let their hair down, and just they're there to have a good time. They're not drinking, they're not acting crazy. They just like to sing. So that's just a few stories of my non-wedding gigs over the years. I could tell you a few church stories too, but mostly when I played at church, it's just I played for the offering, or I've done a special song, before the sermon. Nothing too exciting there. The exciting things were, some of the stories that I've told you about, special requests and stuff. I like singing. I don't think I'm that great a singer, but people like to sing. They like to get together and sing songs together that they know, and they don't care if you're that good. Usually, especially like at a coffee house, people just want to have a good time doing a sing-along, and if everybody knows the words, They're not even listening to you sing. They're singing. They're the stars. They're enjoying themselves. Anyway, just wanted to share a few of those stories. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next Musical Monday. God bless.